What's up, guys? Thank you for coming, buddy. Just get my screen together. We are going to do a Bible study. Can you guys hear me? Can you press 1 if you can hear me? This is my first time doing a live. Can you press 0 if you can't hear me? Press 0 if you cannot hear me. Press 0 if you cannot hear me. Press 1 if you can hear me. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm not getting your messages or anything like that. Okay, I know you definitely getting. Okay, it's definitely appearing. We're going to do a Bible study today. But at first, I want to check and see if you guys can hear me. Yo. We're going to do a Bible study today. But at first, I want to check and see if you guys can hear me. Yo. We're going to do a Bible study today. But at first, I want to check and see if you guys can hear me. Okay, so as we go along, if you guys can, if you have any questions, just put them in the comments below. I have been posting videos regarding chapters 2 Samuel chapter 20 verse 1. First, I want to say that I thank you very much for being here. This is my first live, and I'm going to try to do this the right way. I'm excited to have you guys here. Thank you very much for showing up. I think that my Bible studies are great. They are in depth. They are very researched, and I just want to share with you guys the Bible. And for this Bible study is I go through the Bible, and I believe that in order for us to understand the New Testament, we have to understand the attributes of God. So understanding the attributes of God is found in the Old Testament. And I believe that the very part of knowing God and finding out his attributes and finding out um how he operates, his judgments, his decision making, his getting a better understanding, it starts with the prophets. And you say, well, Tariq, why did you start with the prophets? Well, I start with the prophets because they actually hear and proclaim his word to the people. So the best way is to understand and start laying the foundation for prophets, from the prophets, minor and major prophets. So that's why we're in, and if you see in the videos that I have been going to Second Samuel chapter 21, like we're going to be reading now, but I have been doing the other chapters before this, and we're going to go through every single um prophet there is and get more of a lessons. We get a lot of lessons, not just reading the Bible, but the Bible within itself has lessons in them. Every chapter has multiple lessons that we can learn from, that we can actually get information from. And this is very, very, very important. And this is most people that I see a lot of times, and I'm new to this. I've only been, I graduated from seminary school a few years ago, and I'm sitting with the pastor, I'm sitting with preachers, and they're rattling off these Bible verses, banging them out, and I'm sitting in I'm sitting here watching these preachers and pastors, and I see this, and I'm wondering, well, there has to be, I hear that there's hidden messages within the Bible. And each Bible has to have an understanding and what to do and stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to understand more about the Bible. I want to understand where is those hidden messages within the Bible that we can learn from. So it caused me to go to seminary school, and I want to show you, and I want to share with you. I spend a lot of money on the tools that I have, and I don't want them just to go for my learning, but I want to show you guys how the Bible unfolds itself, how it actually opens itself up, and how the lessons that pour out of each chapter, multiple lessons. So we're going to get into that. We're going to learn about that. We're going to break it down, and if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments below. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. We'll be reading from Second Samuel chapter 21, and um bear with me. Let me just get my screen, my other tabs. That's not the right one. Okay. So in this chapter, what we're going to be reading is a story of David's latter years. This is when he's older. We're going to look at his personal aspirations and his relationship with the Lord. Okay? And within chapter 21 that we're going to be reading, we're going to see David's prayer to the Lord that ends a famine, and a famine of judgment. That's why that David prayed to the Lord, asking him to end the famine of judgment. We're going to see the heroic soldiers, heroic soldiers, and we're also going to learn a lesson in chastisement and courage. So chastisement means God to discipline us. Sometimes he may want to discipline us. And courage is that standing in the face of trials and struggles and um, horrific situations. So we're gonna look into that. So the first thing, let's read this chapter, and then we'll come back and we'll break it down. And it reads: There was a famine during David's reign that lasted for 3 years. So David asked the Lord about it. And the Lord said, the famine has come because Saul and his family are guilty of murdering the Gibeonites. So the king summoned the Gibeonites. They were not part of Israel, but were all that was left of a nation of Amorites. The people of Israel had sworn not to kill them, but Saul, in his zeal for Israel and Judea, had tried to wipe them out. David asked them, what can I do for you? How can I make amends so that you will bless the Lord's people again? Well, money can't settle this matter between us and the family of Saul. The, the Gibeonites replied, neither can we demand the life of anyone in Israel. What can I do then? David asked. Just tell me, and I will do it for you. Then they replied, it was Saul who planned to destroy us, to keep us from having any place at all in the territory of Israel. Verse 6. So let 7 of Saul's sons be handed over to us, and we will execute them before the Lord at Gibeon on the mountain of the Lord. All right, the king said, I will do it. The king spared Jonathan's sons, Mephibosheth, who was Saul's grandson, because of the oath David and Jonathan had sworn before. We've seen that in a previous chapter. But he gave them Saul's 2 sons, Armani and Mephibosheth, whose mother was Respa, daughter of Aiah. He also gave them the 5 sons of Saul's daughters, Meribah, and the wife of Idril, son of Barzillai, from Maholah. The men of Gibeon executed them on the mountain before the Lord. So all 7 of them died together at the beginning of the barley harvest. Respa, then Respa, daughter of Aiah, the mother of 2 of the men, spread burlaps on the rock and stayed there the entire harvest season. He prevented the scavenger birds from tearing at their bodies during the day and stopped the wild animals from eating them at night. When David learned what Rezbah, Saul's concubine, had done, he went to the people of Jabesh Gilead and retrieved the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan. When the Philistines had killed Saul and Jonathan on the mount of Gibeah, the people of Jabesh Gilead stole their bodies from the public square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them. So David obtained the bones of Saul and Jonathan, as well the bones of the men of the Gibeonites had executed. Verse 14. Then the king ordered that they bury the bones in the tomb of Kish, Saul's father, at the town of Zelah, in the land of Benjamin. After that, God ended the famine in the land. Battles again against the Philistines' giants. In verse 15, we're reading, once again, the Philistines were at war with Israel, and when David and his men were in the thick of battle, David became weak and exhausted. Ishba ben Nob was a descendant of the giants. His bronze spearhead weighed more than 7 pounds, and he was armed with a new sword. He had cornered David and was about to kill him, but Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue and killed the Philistine. Then David's men declared, "You you are not going to battle with us. Why risk snuffing out the light of Israel?" After this, there was another battle against the Philistines in Gob. As they fought, Zebekah from Hushah killed Zaph, another descendant of giants. During another battle of Gob, Elhana, son of Ger, from Bethlehem, killed the brother of um, Goliath of Gath. The handle of his spear was thick as a weaver beam. In another battle with the Philistines at Gath, they encountered a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all, who was also a descendant of the giants. But when he defied and taunted Israel, he was killed by Jonathan, the son of David's brother, Shemiah. Oh, excuse me. Verse 20. In another battle with the Philistines at Gath, they encountered a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all, who also a descendant of the giants. But when he defied and taunted Israel, he was killed by Jonathan and the sons of David, brothers, Shemiah. Okay, sorry, I read that again. And the last verse is 22. These 4 Philistines were descendants of giants of Gath, but David and his warriors killed them. Okay, so now let's break this down. Amik, what's up, bro? Thank you for being here. Amik is my editor and he's my friend. He's a good man. He was the one that told me to start doing lives, and I told him that I would. Thank you for being here, Amik. I appreciate it, bro. And we're going to continue on. Okay, so now let's break this down. Actually, let's go back up. Bear with me. For some reason, my computer is not working right. Okay, let's go to 21. Okay. Okay. So now we have verse 1. Now let's break this down. So, what we're going to see here, now we get into the lessons. Now we get into the good stuff. Let's get it. The 3-year famine sent by God. This lesson that we'll see in verses 1 to 14, a lesson on God's chastisement due to a terrible evil that was done. Well, for number 1, we know David sought the Lord, right? We see that. Also, the Lord answered David, a chastisement, a chastisement of Israel. The reason why Saul had committed a terrible evil. He broke the Gibeonites' treaty and tried to eliminate them. We could also see that in you could also see that in Joshua chapter 9 also. David summoned the Gibeonites, asking what he could do to make things right in order to restore the Lord's blessings again, right? But we also see the Gibeonites refused to make a request. Why? They had no right to demand payment for the injustice. They also had no right to execute anyone. David insisted also. But we also see the Gibeonites sought only justice. They only wanted justice. That refers us to Numbers chapter 35, verse 31, and that reads, also, you must never accept a ransom payment for the life of someone judged guilty of murder and subject to execution. Murder must always be put to death. So they were staying within the confines of the law, right? So the Gibeonites sought only justice. How so? The crime against them had been evil. a terrible atrocity, right? But we also see they asked that 7 descendants of Saul be turned over for execution. Apparently 7 who were implicated in the killing. We also see that, right? So let's move on. David carried out the request for justice because he was the king, and his job was to hand down justice, to carry out justice with mercy and compassion, though, too. And we talked about that in the previous chapter, right? He spared Mephibosheth due to his oath to Jonathan. So remember when Jonathan, before he was killed, he made an oath with King David before when he was about to go on the run from Saul trying to kill him. And then Jonathan made King David make an oath to not kill his descendants. So his name wouldn't be wiped off the earth. And he made that pact and he agreed to it. So let's continue. He chose others to be executed. 2 sons of Respa, Armani and Mephibosheth, not Jonathan's sons, but Respa's sons. 5 sons of Merib also. The Gibeonites executed 7 descendants. They killed and exposed them. They were executed at the start of the barley harvest. We see that, right? But we also see the vigilant love of Respa, who watched over the dead bodies of her 2 sons and the other 5 men. She guarded them until the drought ended and rain came. She protected them from the animals. The compassion of kindness of David. Remember, I told you that a king has to always hand down justice, but be kind and compassionate and showing mercy. He heard about Respa's devoted and touching love. He had the bones of Saul and Jonathan brought from Jabesh Gilead. We see that in 1 Samuel chapter. You can read that. Take a note of 1 Samuel chapter 31, verses 1 to 13. He buried the bones of the executed men, also of Saul, his household in the tomb of Saul's father, Kish. He moralized Saul's dynasty, the first king of Israel. And King David showed mercy and kindness and moralized Saul's dynasty, his whole family. But this was also in the previous chapters when we talked about this before. This was also talked about. This was God's judgment on Saul's family. He said that they will all die. But let's move on. The prayer of God's people was answered. The famine was ceased. Now what we're going to learn in verses 15 to 22, the heroic soldiers who serve Saul. This is a lesson on courage. So as we read and as we break down these verses, I want you to ingest this and look at your life and how courageous you might have been, or how courageous you would have been if you how courageous you would have been if you were in this situation too. Let me go down to 15. Oh, went too far. Okay, so there goes 15. So now what we're going to learn in 15 is Abisha, the soldier who saved David's life. He saved the king. He had become exhausted. David had become exhausted. David was in hand-to-hand combat with the descendant of the giants. His spear weighed about 7.5 pounds. He had cornered David and was about to kill him. Abisha rescued David and killed the giant. David's men confronted David, insisted that the light of Israel guard the light, never again to enter battle with him. It shows that King David started to become older in his latter years. He wasn't as sharp as he was in his younger years. Sebesha, the heroic soldier who killed the descendant of the giants and was promoted as a commander over a division of 24,000 soldiers. We see this in First Chronicles chapter 11, verse 29, and that reads, Sebeka from Hushesh, Zalman from Aholia, Mahari from Netopha, Held son of Bahat from Metopha. But we also see in verses 27, First Chronicles chapter 27, 11, Zebekah, a descendant of Zerah from Hushah, was a commander of 8 divisions and 24 troops, which was on duty during the 8th month. That's in First Chronicles chapter 27, verse 11. So make sure you write down those notes so you can go back and look at it. So we're almost done. Elihana, the heroic soldier who killed Lami Goliath. We also see that he killed Lami Goliath. Goliath. Wow. It showed that David, David killed the Goliath, and now Elihana killed one. Jonathan, the heroic soldier who killed the giant with 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot. He killed the giant when he defiled Israel. He was David's nephew. This is starting to become a dynasty of killing giants. And I also want you, in a lot of my videos, I want you guys to remember, when we sit here and we talk about David, like I said in my videos, I want you to look at King David as Jesus, because King David was a descendant of Jesus. Jesus was a descendant of King David. So how many times did Jesus go against giants, overcame so many trials and tribulations? He even defeated Satan at his own game. He won at the end of the day. So this has become a dynasty of overcoming huge obstacles and defeating giants. So does anybody have any questions for me? Because that ends our Bible study. And we're going to, tomorrow, we're going to go over Second Samuel chapter 20. Wait, did I say that? Oh, please don't tell me I did it wrong. I think I did that wrong. Hold on, let me see. Let me just make sure. Bear with me. I just want to make sure I covered every base that I have. Yes, that was 21. So tomorrow we are going to get into chapter 22. And chapter 22 is going to be from 1 to 51. And that's going to be David's song of praise, a great lesson on God's day-to-day deliverance. So now we get to see God does his deliverance. And that's going to help us in the New Testament. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. You guys showed up and showed out. 95 people. I am so blessed and I'm so happy. And I will see you guys tomorrow. So make sure you have your Bibles ready and you're ready to study, thank you so much. And God bless you and God bless your family. I hope that this helped you. I hope that it touched your heart. I hope that you can see the lessons within the Bible and you can study and you will know. And I'll see you guys next week. I mean, tomorrow. Tomorrow. Thank you.